Hello, welcome to this New Year's Eve video. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this is going to be just a quick numerology kind of numbers assessment for 2025. I wanted to just talk a little bit about the coming year, and I have literally 20 minutes. So this is going to be like an exercise of my own to try to compress things and be quick. But I did a longer one for 2024, I think. But this year, yeah, we're going with new things. Doing old things in new ways is the kind of theme. And what do I mean by that? New things in old ways and old ways and new things is kind of like, it's a mirrored reflection happening because we're approaching the 9. So let's talk first of all about 2024 quickly. For anybody who's new or anybody who didn't see my videos and hear me talk about numerology before, or perhaps isn't aware, 2024 being the 8 year. It's important to understand what this meant. It's so I can talk slowly and not get overexcited. Some of these things, they're exciting, and also there's so much to say that if I don't slow down, my brain starts to go faster than my mouth. So the 8 year, of course, is the karmatic infinity. It is the playing out of all of the retribution, sort of, that's already accumulated up to the 8. And 9 now will be about closures. It's the completion. It is the whole representation. And if you look at, like I have here, oh, my light's going to be annoying, probably, great. 2025, we add it up, and we get a 9, right? 2, 0, 2 is 4, plus 5 is 9. So if you're not into numerology, I can't give a whole thing right now. And reduction style numerology, which is what I just did here to reduce the number down into 1 digit and talk about that alone, is only one angle to view numbers at, and it's very helpful. And of course, I don't want to get too much into teaching numerology either. I'm just going to show while I go here, because I'm going to interpret it through what I like to kind of call the dilution of the 9, so that we can see how the number gets to the 9 and what we can learn about it, and what we can sense about what the year will be to us, through seeing what the numbers are. So when we look at, maybe I won't even try to do it on my paper, but I might write here and talk about it. The year having a 2 at the very start of it, and a 0 in between, right? And then we have our numbers, and this has been obviously since the year 2000. Zeros are seen as sort of pauses and placeholders. They have infinite potential. It's just, everything could happen. Anything can happen in the realm of interpreting numbers through sequential growth and what the number itself represents. So we have first place value to think about. So we have sort of the grandfather number of 2 for the 2000s, right, that we've come into already, and that holds a flavoring all on its own, and that sets this sort of very subtle tempo to go along with everything. Because think of how long that 2 is going to sit there, right? It's sort of like the metronome or something that sort of keeps the beat, the barometer, I don't know, that sort of is that very steady long-term theme. And what is the 2? Partnerships, duality, opposition, all of the things that come together with the 2, obviously like those things, but also the 2 is something like great partnerships and the sidekick, the best friend, the friendship and camaraderie that is natural to the number 2. It needs the one next to it to prop up, to highlight, to be with, and not even just to be led by. You know, that can be a big trap. And hey, we've seen it play out, just like duality in itself, the extreme oppositions. It's not really just, it's sort of a trap. It's just one of many slices of the pie that our concepts two needs to work through. Two is a whole number on its own, and it has a lot of things that it encompasses and that it moves through in the gradient to move into three. And especially where you have 2000, of course. It's a long-term things. So for many generations, we will have this sort of layering theme of partnerships and twos and how to build that, and duality and all that. Being a higher focus than it was, say, in the 1900s. That was productivity. That was one. That was ideas. It had a real first things to go. It was innovation through that time. And you can just look at 1900s in comparison to how the 2000s has been, the directional focus of society, of collectives, global community, all different places and countries all over the world, how focus has changed, sort of, into the more dynamics about partnerships, male and female, oppositions, light and shadow. Now, so that's sort of the undertone, that things will always be sort of measured by and growing through. Let me get a sip of my coffee here. Getting this in early before work. And then, of course, we've had this giant placeholder of the zeros, which is anything can happen. It's leaving huge, giant infinity to play through what we've got to play through, letting us know these are long-term, generational grandfather messages. They're things that we teach our children, and we've been taught by our parents even, that will be incorporated and worked through, and that type of long-term lessons. And so, and next, right, we're jumping into the 20s again. So we're at 2 again, we're at 25. So there's two different ways to kind of dilute and look at in numerology and at 2025 in the year. And that's sort of just to jump into and speak again about 2 and talk about how it's in the placement sort of the tens place, right? And talk about those decade-long messages that 2 will bring through and has been bringing through. We're halfway through the 2020s, so we can kind of see what's happening with the play out of duality and light and shadow. Good versus evil is really strong. Extremes have been in every angle being pulled back. Oh, I mean pulled back like the Newton's cradle kind of thing. I do this like people just gonna know what I'm talking about. Like maybe some people do, because I use that analogy a lot. But we see the extremes everywhere having to be pulled. And 5, to just speak about the ones, place, and the 5 and the shift directly that we will be experiencing, is going to be chaotic. 5's known as sort of the tower, the shake-up, testing of boundaries. 5 comes after 4, and 4 is foundational building. And 4 is kind of like thinking things are getting solid, thinking things are, okay, we finally kind of figured it out. And that was great for us within the 8 year that we just went through with 2024 this year, because it has, it brought a lot of things that we think we're moving. We think change. We think, yeah, we finally got headway. We think all these things are super stable. The changes that are being shown in the collective and even in ourselves right now. We have to remember these things play out individually, just like collectively. We are cells within the organ, but the organ and the organ systems all reflect cellular work, right? And so, sorry, my hair is like glistening in my peripheral. So, all these kinds of things, these karmatic playouts that we feel that we've just had justified through and really kind of have a firm setting on, be so prepared to have those tested in this coming year, because that's what's meant for it. When we think things are strong, we need to know how strong they are. When you're a good home builder and you've built a house, you're a mason and you've built a house, the biggest test for the little piggies and the big bad wolf, right, was what knocked everything down and what withstood that wind. What withstands the hurricane? What does your house withstand a storm? And that's what 2029 is kind of going to be, with that 5 energy brought into it. But remember, we're also in a 9 year. You know, the overall theme, the real dilution for the number down is the 9. And we've already been through the 8. So people don't get crazy, start thinking that it's going to be Ultimate Tower. Things are going to totally jump on their head, and it's not going to be as we thought it was, because it's exactly as you think it is. We've been through 8. We've seen already the truths. So what you feel are the truths about things, they're already there. Those are coming more to fruition. They're going to be more solidified through this year, to be able to see for the whole as to what they are. I love the reference of saying with the heads and the tails of a coin. And for a while we were stuck on heads and stuck on tails, or just seeing heads and just seeing tails, and then trying to really be in between them. But 8 has brought us sort of through the rim of the coin to seeing that, oh yeah, it's a whole coin. And a coin, what is a coin, can be used for currency. A coin is a whole thing. Let's get back to remembering the whole thing again. And 9 is really the whole remembrance of that, knowing that the coin is tangible, figuring out again that it's currency, remembering what the initial 1 was even brought forth, why the coin was smelted and cast and set for to be, and to stop getting so wrapped up in the potentials of what each side represents, physically, mentally, spiritually, which is what we've been doing in so many different ways. So 2025 is going to be a wonderful year of closure, closings. Just like I kind of started off with, it's going to be this very mirrored threshold doorway effect as well. So be mindful that the 9 is that. It is almost holds the 1. They are the snake eating its tail, the Ouroboros, or whatever, however you say that. The door, you can go in or out of it, and depending on where you're looking at it, what your perspective is of it, and how you're asked to move through it, or in fact pushed maybe through it, or shut out of it, it's going to all depend on if the door slams or what's going. Many different things can happen, and especially where we have the 5 as the 2025 year. Before I get off, I have like 2-3 minutes left. I wanted to sort of just reiterate, bring back a refresh for myself to air out and talk about, and for anybody who's new or hasn't heard me speak about this before, the long-term view that I sort of had, and many of us have had, who I've spoken to over the last 5-6 years, whether I knew them before BC, before Corona, like I like to call it, whether I knew them BC or post-BC, in this new age sort of times, we all have had similar things happen to us in the timelines, to where there was a false starting through early 2010, 11, 14, 15, 16. Something seemed to happen, sparked with us, changes and shifts. Then it got dulled out and strangled, or quieted down, 2018, 19, even before. A lot of us felt this before. And then some of us, we got it, obviously, the physical shut it down with 2020. But there was a close it down and sort of do things message there. Of course, because 17, 18, and 19 are the same thing that we're facing sort of in the 9 collective message now. It's that sort of consolidation. Doing a lot of body language today. But anyways, there was sort of a false start, and obviously we've had what we've had. And lots of us were told to kind of close our gifts down, be quiet about things, not to be out doing astral projections, not to be, sort of shut it down. And I was offered a bit before that happened. This was before sort of Corona lockdowns had happened, but that there was a cusp happening, and that, or that there was a shift happening. And when the lockdowns came, they said 2 weeks, I knew no. Straight away, I knew no. And I had this sort of gift given to me about very long term, and that it was 2026, that it wouldn't even, nothing would even be getting to going in fruition and through till 2026, and that we would have this sort of rise. I thought it was going to be a halfway marker for 2023, meaning like peak and troughs. But then as we got to through 2022 into 2023, I realized it was actually just like it's a this happening with an ascension kind of thing, instead of what I was interpreting. I think others might be feeling a peak trough too. Because perhaps there's multiple things. I mean, not perhaps. There definitely, most certainly, is multiple things happening. I can only view, a segmented portion of what I see. And of course, all I can offer is my perspective from where I see. So keeping all that in mind, busy times ahead of us, and let's talk about really quickly before I have to actually get off here, just what 9 really means. And the special theme that I feel is the whole bringing together of the numbers here, like I talked about, sort of the main dilution, and not just the placeholders of them, but how they come together to teach us great lessons, right? And what kind of work we could do during 2025. So those things which we have already done, already have sort of accumulated and have rough models, rough sketches, blueprints, and that can be, working, tangible, physical, across a multitude of projects and avenues, spiritual and 3D. It can be service-oriented, skill trade, energetics. Everything's going to be coming back together, because this is going to be a great reuniting with the one and original beginning. And we've seen us all kind of hearkening back to getting back to nature, getting back to foundations, whether it's traditional living and homesteading, or getting out off screens, having too much of disconnect with social medias, missing out on real relationships and all of that. It's going to be getting all of those back, tying up those things, finding those and closing the missing gaps again. And same thing with projects that we've already had going. Those things are going to really be times to close up and get completed. So spend this New Year's Eve, and I'm sure people have already been feeling it and spending the pausing and the getting ready for it. Because there's going to be the shake-up. There's going to be everything kind of like, oh, do you really, let's shake that window. Does it really work? If you built a chair, so to speak, have a little kid come and jump and test on it, the rocking chair, and see if it just falls apart when you broke it or not. And if it did, how do we react? And if it didn't, great job, Things probably won't fall apart, because that's more of like the real 5 vibe. We have a lot behind it, a lot of that 2 and 2 on either sides of a 0, great foundations to come together for the 4 already built. So things are really foundational. I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as like a chair falling apart. It would be more of like, oh, it creaks, and now I've got to like figure out the creak. Or, oh, it has this tiny little one, when the painter sees that one thing off on the painting, like they got something wrong with the person's hair or something, or the one thing in your room is just off. It's just that one slight little thing that you're going to have to go and correct, that you're going to have to come back to, or notice, and just learn to accept as it is and say, hey, that's an imperfection and it is, I'm done. And that's the great part of it too. Being able to do that, being able to solidify something with an imperfection, say, hey, I'm creator being, I was trying something out, it is what it is, here we go, that's it. Or refine it and give that final little bow, give the little curl the last thing it needs, give the child, the 18-year-old, the kiss on the forehead as he goes out the door, and let him go be him. And whatever it is, that's a lifestyle, that's a personal thing from my own perspective about my 2025 will be about. My son graduates this year, and that's a more simplistic way to explain it, but I have to go. I have no more minutes. So thank you so much for listening to this. I might come on another time and speak more deeply. Feel free to leave comments or messages. Send me emails. Love to hear them. Happy New Year. I hope you have a happy New Year and a wonderful New Year's Day. And I'll catch you next time.